So I already started recording this review, got about halfway, and my camera cut out for some weird reason, and I lost everything. So, yeah, all these technical difficulties are starting to get to me a little bit. Just a little bit! Alright, let's do this again. We're going to finish up the Child's Play franchise with Curse of Chucky here. I have already done Colt. I did it back in October when it came out. Still thinking about maybe revisiting it and talking about some things that I, realized having watched Curse and Colt back to back. I've only seen Curse once, so I did not rewatch it before I saw Colt. I think I will have a much better understanding of what is going on in Colt. Certain things that I would catch this time around that maybe I didn't catch then. Plus now I know there's an after credit sequence in there, and I can talk about that within my review, so I'm open to it. That after credit sequence, I did a whole video explaining why I didn't see that and whatever frickin' Netflix bullshit. I bought the movie, it was coming in the mail that morning, but I chose to watch the midnight release because I wanted to get the review out as quick as possible. Long story, that's not what we're here to talk about. Now this movie took, was made 9 years after Seed. You can see what Seed did to this franchise. It really kind of crushed it. And I mean, I like Seed, but most don't. And so, it really hurt the franchise for a while. They didn't want to do a new one. And I have to give it to the, campaign, marketing, all that stuff for this one, because they kind of left us in the dark on what this was going to be. They showed us a trailer and this and that, and we just kind of filled in the blanks for ourselves, and we just kind of assumed that it was going to be like a soft reboot. Maybe the events wouldn't be mentioned, maybe it would be left open for this or that, maybe, who knows. We just kind of thought it was going to be a remake. That's what originally the thoughts were. But as I said, more of like a soft reboot where like things just aren't mentioned. It's just Chucky's killing, and we're just going to ignore everything else. And we get that reveal here. She starts peeling away the stuff that this is a direct sequel to Seed, which I thought was great. I really, really enjoy that they went for it and that they continued that storyline that they'd been setting up for 5 films. And I thought that was a really smart way to do it. This film has a ton of fake out jump scares, which I despise. And really don't like them here at all. I never do. So that's one of my biggest negatives of this film. Overall, I definitely enjoyed the film. It plays around with the continuity of the films that have been set up in the past, and you guys know how I feel about that stuff. So I'm wishy-washy on that stuff. I like exploring that and expanding, but also it's got to make sense, and I think some of it doesn't, and that annoys me. But you just gotta take it, because they've already messed around with it enough with Charles Lee Ray having that necklace on, and I've mentioned it in my other reviews. I'm not going to go back to it. So we get Fiona Dorff here, Brad Dourif's daughter, playing Nika, the main character. I think she's wonderful. She's beautiful, and I think she's great in this, and she's a good lead, so I enjoyed that part of it for sure. They have this FedEx, UPS type driver who comes and hits on her, and then she's like, "Was she hitting on me, Mom?" And she's like, "Oh, he was probably just being nice." What a bitch. Everyone in this movie is a bitch to her, basically, in her family for sure. And that was pissing me off, because it's so hard to believe that guy was hitting on her. Freaking gorgeous girl. Anyway, and so they get Chucky in the mail, and it's a good guy doll, and it looks like a good guy doll, which was great to see Chucky back in his good guy doll form, because we haven't seen him look like that since part 3. And while I loved the way Chucky looked when he was the good guy doll, I wasn't crazy about the way he looked when he was Chucky. Now, I have a few thoughts on this. Number one, the face when he's Chucky, that looks like a real boy almost, he actually looks a lot like the sister in this, the Fiona Doris sister. Anybody else feel like that? It looks just like their faces look very similar. I don't know. I thought that was odd. But also, I pretty much am chalking it up to that whatever makeup or prosthetic or whatever the hell that Chucky had, I'm guessing Tiffany or whoever the hell sent him out to them. I have to assume it was Tiffany or Jennifer Tilly, whatever you want to call her. I have to assume that because she put all that stuff on his face, it made his face almost like Botoxed to where he couldn't move it. And so it looked really weird and not like the other Chucky. Because once he gets all that shit pulled off and he looks like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, that looked much more like Chucky. That looked more like the Chucky that we've known from the last two films for sure. And you could be, oh, well, yeah, it's because it's, that's how Chucky looks, so that's how. No, the facial, like everything looked different, like the way his face moved and all of that. I could also blame it on the budget, or maybe like Don Mancini, that was originally the way he wanted the doll to look, like more lifelike, more like a real living person when he's in Chucky mode. I don't know. It looks very odd. And I don't really care for it. Like, even if the originals didn't exist and this was the first one we ever saw, I'd be like, that doll looks weird. Like, I don't know. It's not, I'm not a huge fan of it. I prefer how Chucky lives in the first one, but that might be biased purely due to nostalgia. I'm not sure. I mean, I can't really step outside of it, but I feel like I don't, but anyway, let's move on. But yeah, how does everyone feel about the look of Chucky in this one? Do they like it? Like, do they like it more? I doubt that, but how do you guys feel about that? I'm really curious. I hope you notice the difference because it's drastically different. Love the opening title card when it like sweeps over and the mom's dead in the background, and then it sweeps over and it just says curse and Chucky's sitting there off to the right. Like, it's like a panning shot. I like that shot a lot. I think that's cool. I like the title card and whatnot. And then the family comes over and her sister is a fucking bitch. Oh my God. Some of the shit she says to her in this, it's like, please die. Just die. You're such a dreadful human being. And then they decide that they're going to make soup or chili, I think. And they both leave and Chucky poisons one of the soups and it becomes like a Russian roulette soup wheel, which is a mystery, like who's going to eat it. And they do a lot of like little red herring moments where like this one's like, oh, like the first guy's like, oh, this is amazing, and then the kid's like, tastes funny, and you're like, I like that. I liked playing around with it, and you're just sitting there like, who's gonna die? And ends up being the father, and he goes out and he wrecks his car, and then they tell him to pull away the hood, which then decapitates him somehow. His head comes off so easily. But some really good gore in this movie. The effects on a lot of the stuff are good. There is some CGI here, which looks... That's what happens when you record a review at 2 a.m. for the second time. But yeah, the CGI, Chucky, man, that looks terrible. He's walking down the stairs. That's really the only like CGI Chucky we get. Any other CGI Chucky that's in this movie, it wasn't so noticeable that I was like, hey, that for sure is. There's some questionable ones, but the one where he's coming down from the attic, awful. They should not have shown that in the film. That was a huge knock on the film. They should have just showed his feet coming down the stairs and then like a half body shot up. Like, you don't need to show him full body. It's weird though, because they show him full body in other sequences where he's walking towards her straight, and he looks pretty good. And I'm guessing that's because it's this upslant and they couldn't have anything behind him or whatever to do the animatronics. I don't know, but they should not have shown him walking down the stairs. It looks god awful. And here's something that I really respect about the movie is that, Mancini wanted to tell this story. He wanted to tell this origin story that took place even before Child's Play. And so he has Fiona Dorff's character, or Nika, watching these old home videos, and there's Charles Lee Ray in the videos that she's watching. And they used just Brad Dourif and put him in a wig and let us suspend our disbelief, which I'm on board with, even though it doesn't match up, and that's clearly a much older Brad Dourif than we saw in Child's Play. I don't care. I'm fine with that. Yes, it looks weird, but it makes much more sense to me than recasting it as some other guy and then just telling us that's Charles. No, that isn't. I'm okay with the actor. I can suspend that disbelief. That's what I liked about The Hobbit. When they brought freaking Bilbo back and we had Ian there, it's just yeah, he looks older. I don't give a shit. I want to see it. It's the same guy. That's the way it should be. I'm good with that. That's why I knocked Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, for not bringing back the kid who played Michael. He's oh, he was too big and he was this and that. I was fuck that. Bring him back. We'll suspend the disbelief for it. We're suspending disbelief for a white horse and his mom coming back. Okay, I'm not going to get into that movie. I like that movie, by the way, if you've seen my review on it. But yeah, it's just really. But I noticed this little thing. It's so stupid, but when they're tucking the little girl in, and she goes and she's "There's Chucky," and he runs past. The nanny, the au pair at the door is great, and she turns and she flips off the light switch, and it's a cloud that's over the light switch, and the light switch is right at his crotch, and it makes the light switch look like his dick. I was that's really inappropriate for children. Totally, completely pointless thing to mention, but I saw it and it made me laugh out loud, and it's for 1 second, and it's gone. The affair flip actually got me. This time I totally forgot about it. I thought the husband was cheating, and I thought he was the first time too, I'm sure. And here I was okay, they're having an affair, typical. And when the mom goes at her, I was oh shit, that's right. That's what happens here. I really liked that a lot. You don't see that enough. So I thought that was a neat little flip there. And Chucky's whole head turns around, Exorcist Linda Blair style. And nobody says anything. It's totally normal. I was really pretty sure people would be what the hell is wrong with this doll? But absolutely nothing is said about it. 45 minutes into this movie before Chucky even says a word. We're fully aware that Chucky is alive from moment one. We know this, we're 7 films deep, and even if this is a reboot, we know he's alive. But we don't hear his voice for 45 freaking minutes into this movie. Now, she goes through newspaper articles. And this film even goes back to when Charles Lee Ray dies. And when she's looking at the paper, it says December 29th, 1988 on the paper. And that Andy Barclay says the doll did it and all this. That just doesn't add up. Charles Lee Ray dies on November 9th. We see that on his tombstone. And we're to assume that the next day is Andy's birthday, but it even says it's in November. So why is it now December 29th? They're not reporting on this in the paper till the 29th? Because then Child's Play 2 takes place 2 years later in 1990, so it ain't like that. So that timeline doesn't match up, and it's odd to me that if they were trying to connect it to the first one so good, that they'd pay attention to their own continuity they set up in these films. I'm just watching them right now. I didn't write them. I didn't make them. And I'm noticing these little errors. So how could they not have? So I don't know. That stuff kind of just annoys me. But maybe there's an explanation for that. I don't know. I don't know of one, but it's possible that maybe he blew up in that store, and then it does later on. It's like a month and a half later. I don't know, but I've seen timelines that say that all takes place in November, really close in succession. It's tiny, but it still annoys me. And the sister getting stabbed in the eyes, like, you have your mother's eyes, and they were always too fucking close together. He stabs one of her eyeballs out and then throws it down the stairs at Fiona at the bottom, or Nika. I thought that was pretty cool. And then instead of Chucky comes down, he steps on it. That looked great. Just getting that stab in the eye looks gnarly. And then he cuts the dude's jaw off, like, once, he doesn't believe her, of course, and he ties her to the chair, and he's like, where the hell's my daughter? And he's laying down. Chucky freaking takes an axe, and he cuts right through here, and he rips her jaw off. It was like a perfect time to cover a yawn. Man, I can't stop yawning. I'm trying. Like, it just, like, wants to keep going. It's pissing me off. I'm trying to fucking do a review here, body. I don't got time to yawn. But yeah, I love that her being paralyzed kind of plays into this a little bit to her character, where, he comes and he takes an axe and he hits her in the leg, and he thinks she's going to have this, reaction. But she's just like nothing. She can't feel anything down there. So she just kind of uses that to her advantage and hits him, and then pulls it out of her leg and tries to use it and cuts his head off. Which then he just goes over and grabs his head and puts it back on himself. And he takes her and he throws her off the stairs, and she falls like a full story down. Oh my God, landing on that tile, she would have been done for. So we get this flashback that shows that Chucky, or Charles Lee Ray, was, all about her mom and killed the dad, and wanted to have a family with them or whatever. And she, the mom of Nika, called the police on him. And so in his moment of vengeance, he stabs her in the stomach, which is what paralyzes Nika. And he swears his, vengeance, he'll come back for them. And then, that is him running off and then getting shot by Mike, the detective in the toy store. So we get to see how the cops found him. That being said, where does Eddie Caputo fit into this? That's what's odd to me. Like, did he call Eddie from there? Like, I mean, it's not unexplainable, but it's like, so he took off running when the cops showed up, and then called Eddie, and then Eddie met him, like, he's like, meet me on the corner of Wabash and whatever. And so, like, he's running to him, and then, Mike, the detective, whatever, he comes and finds him and shoots him as Eddie's trying to get, because that's just not the way that scene plays out in my head when I watched it in the original, but you could mess around with it to make it work. I just don't know where Eddie fits into that. I also think that the name should have been the name from Bride of Chucky, when he's talking to Tiffany, and Tiffany pulls out the ring, and she's like, look, I kept it. And he's like, I got that for whatever the hell the name is. I can't remember what it is. I don't think it's the same name. It'd be really fucking cool if it was, but God, I hope it is. That'd be fantastic. I don't think it is. But if it was the same name, yeah, like, that would make all the sense in the world, because he's like crazy about her, and he would have been dating Tiffany at this time. And he was obviously, supposedly, like, crazy about this chick and wanted her family or whatever he wanted. I don't know what the hell his intentions were, but that just seems to make more sense. So I'll try to assume that that's who that was with the ring and all that. But yeah. So I like it. I like that they took it back, all the way to before the first film, and explain, like, how the cops found him. We also get to see his voodoo knife in that scene, so bringing that back. Someone nicely pointed out to me that that because I said it was like a good guy's doll knife, and then when he said it, it's just one of those moments where you've watched too many goddamn movies and too many times, whatever, and it's just one of those things that I completely seem to space somehow. But yeah, that knife he has in the first movie is the voodoo knife, which I'm sure all of you know, and I'm the idiot, but yeah, he has it here in this scene before, which I thought was really cool to see it. He'll call back there. And then, of course, yeah, she's convicted of the murders, which she would be. I mean, that's the most logical conclusion to this. In reality, like, no one's going to believe it's a killer doll, although with all the stories from Andy Barclay, I like that he mentions the previous families that he's harmed in the past, and he mentions the families from Child's Play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like all of them, all the way to the Tillys, he even says. So like he mentions all the families that he destroys, and gives, like that Tilly comment, gives that credence to that seed of Chucky is not being ignored. Of course, that begs the question, where the hell are Glenn and Glenda? I think because of the unpopularity of Seed of Chucky, he just tried to outright ignore it, like they didn't happen, while also kind of giving it a wink like it did happen. But that doesn't mean Glenn or Glenda can't be around. They're just not in it at all. And I'm hoping that we get at least a mention of them if there is another movie, or if this TV show goes through like they're planning on. I want some reference to them at some point. And then Tiff gets the doll back by killing yet another cop, by slicing his throat when he takes it from the evidence. And she even makes a line like, they'll never learn, or whatever. So it's just a redo of her scene from Bride of Chucky. And then he gets shipped to Andy Barclay, which was incredible to see back when I saw this, like Andy for the first time since the second one. It was like, holy shit. Like Alex Vincent, obviously, not the kid who played him in 3. But it was just incredible. Like, oh my God, it's Alex Vincent. It's like freaking, Andy Barclay is back. And we get to see that he has a picture of Kyle, and he has a picture of his mom and him. And he gets on the phone with his mom, and he's talking to his mom, and he says, are you going to, what are you making for dinner or whatever? So that means that she is out of wherever she was, assisted living. We don't know. We had to speculate that maybe she was under court mandate. That's why she couldn't get out. She was blamed for the murders. Who knows? But now she's out, and he also asks her, how is Mike? We have to assume that would be Chris Sarandon's character. So maybe they ended up together, because there was some kind of a hinted romance in the first movie. So is that us being told that they are together? And then Chucky comes out, and Andy's ready for him. He's got a gun, and he shoots at his head. But although in this next one he has Chucky's head only, so I just have to fill in the blanks here and see that he ain't, like, for me, like, he's got to, just so that it fits. Like, he has to shoot his body, not his head, so that he can keep his head and keep it in a safe, like he does in the next one. So that's pretty easy. So you have to kind of just adjust things here and there. Speaking of adjusting things, the audio on this thing, low lows, high highs. God, it's annoying. I hate fucking Blu-rays like that. There's DVDs too, but I seem to see that on Blu-rays more often than anything. So anyway, so that's the Chucky series, the Child's Play series. A lot of fun revisiting. I'm still just, I'm going to think about the Cult of Chucky revisit. I'm definitely on board for it right now. You guys let me know if you're interested in that, or if you just want to watch the other one and be done with it. I get that too. But this is fun. So yeah, I guess that's it. We're done, Chucks. All right, guys. Good night.